aggression over individuality.
The great novel by George Orwell, which was, of course, fiction. Was he onto something? Was this a prophetic vision? And of course, some say he was inspired by Aldous Huxley, A Brave New World. Are we living in the UK in 2026 heading towards something similar?
Interesting thing. You said it was your dream that the eyes of the state can be on you at all times. Now, you were talking about use of technology in policing, but what do you say to voters that might think that sounds a bit creepy? You know, the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood is watching you.
Well, I think that my quote should be read in context. I was
Shabana Mahmood is watching you. Is that a terrifying thought?
talking about the fact that given that the prison system has been on the brink of collapse and this government has had to stop the collapse of our prison system, we've obviously brought in changes to sentencing, which will bring in more community sentences. And I think that technology has the potential, the next generation of tagging and other developments, to make sure that actually if somebody is serving a sentence outside of prison, the eyes of the state can still be on that person, just as they are on that person when they are in prison. So I think that the quality of punishment, which is necessary when people break our laws, they should rightly be punished. I think it can be just as strong if delivered in the community with technology being used as it is in prison. So I was making a bigger case about how technology, I think, does have the power to unlock effective punishment, whether that's in a prison or outside of a prison.
So you weren't trying to freak people out.
But in addition, I do think that AI and other technology like live facial recognition can transform the way that policing operates. And
AI can transform the way policing operates. This country is already looking at doing away with trial by jury, and now they're talking about using AI for punishment. Could AI really punish you? That's the UK. It's looking a bit dangerous in the UK. What about over in America, in the US? Now, there's a new mayor of New York. Surely he doesn't want New York to become some kind of 1984 dystopia, does he?
Clearly, these are programs for every single New Yorker. These are not programs that are going to ask the immigration status of any one of the children. All of those children are New Yorkers. They should all be enrolled in pre-K and 3K, no matter where they were born or where they come from. And we are also proud to be a sanctuary city. What a sanctuary city means is that we have policies in place, policies that have existed for years in this city, that deny ICE agents access into schools, hospitals, city properties, or even the properties of city contractors, unless those ICE agents can present a judicial warrant signed by a judge. We know that the vast majority of the time, ICE agents are not presenting that kind of documentation. If they're presenting any documentation, it tends to be an administrative warrant, and oftentimes there isn't any documentation even provided. So we want to make clear the rights of every New Yorker that they have.
So New York is a haven city. He doesn't want ICE agents storming in, and well, we saw what happened on the streets of Minneapolis. Minneapolis? How do I pronounce that? Absolutely horrific. And if you're a child growing up in New York, the mayor says you're a child of New York. He's not going to question you about the status of your parents.
Clearly, these are programs for every single New Yorker. These are not programs that are going to ask the immigration status of any one of the children. All of those children are New Yorkers. They should all be enrolled in pre-K and 3K, no matter where they were born or where they come from. And we are also proud to be a sanctuary city. What a sanctuary city means is that we have policies in place, policies that have existed for years in this city, that deny ICE agents access into schools, hospitals, city properties, or even the properties of city contractors, unless those ICE agents can present a judicial warrant signed by a judge. We know that the vast majority of the time, ICE agents are not presenting that kind of documentation. If they're presenting any documentation, it tends to be an administrative warrant, and oftentimes there isn't any documentation even provided. So we want to make clear the rights of every New Yorker that they have.
Wow, that's interesting. In the comments, we've got people saying it's replacement. Well, look, hasn't the entire population of North America already been replaced once? The Native Americans once lived there on the plains, on the prairie, eating only what they needed. They've been replaced. Jeffrey is saying if they deny federal people and then deny the city federal money. Now, interestingly, Jeffrey, I tried to put your comment that says Trump. I can't get it on the screen. It won't let me. It's a conspiracy. Anyway, that's Mamdani. You've all got lots to say about him. What about RFK Jr.? He's going to flip the food pyramid upside down. Let's hear what he is up to. He's a figure from a very famous family, a very unlucky family. There's a lot of conspiracy theories flying around about what happened to his uncle and his father. And he's from a left-wing family. He's a Democrat originally. They didn't want anything to do with him. He tried to run as an independent and has wound up on the Republicans with Trump, and he's trying to make America healthy again, if it ever was.
Hi, I'm Robert F. Kennedy Jr., your HHS secretary. On Thursday, the United States formally withdrew from the World Health Organization. We made this decision to reclaim our independence, to protect American sovereignty, and to free our public health policy from a system that no longer serves the American people. The World Health Organization has lost its way. It's drifted far from its founding mission, and it's become mired in bureaucracy, in conflicts of interest, and in international power politics. During the COVID pandemic, those failures weren't just abstract, they were deadly. The world watched as transparency collapsed, accountability disappeared, and ordinary citizens paid the price. That hasn't changed, and it isn't improving. President Trump recognized the problems with WHO immediately. In fact, one of his very first executive orders of his second term began the formal process of withdrawing the United States from the World Health Organization. It was an early, decisive signal that American health policy would answer to the American people and not to foreign bureaucracies. Today, we're completing that action. Protecting Americans here at home and abroad is our top priority. And that's why my team at HHS, working closely with the HHS career civil servants and scientists and the State Department, has strengthened our biosecurity, upgraded disease surveillance, improved outbreak preparedness, and expanded the rapid response capabilities for any public health emergency wherever it begins. We don't need outside institutions to do that. Going forward, U.S. engagement with the WHO will be limited solely to completing our withdrawal and safeguarding the health and safety of the American people. All U.S. funding has ended. All government U.S. personnel have stopped working there. I believe this deeply, that only the United States has the scale, the innovation, and the leadership to drive global health solutions that put people first, starting with our own citizens. Although we are withdrawing from the WHO, America will never withdraw from its leadership in global health. America will continue to lead. We will lead with science, with integrity, and with transparency, and with accountability. And let me say this clearly. For the Americans who died alone in nursing homes, the small businesses that were destroyed by reckless mandates, the families whose lives were upended by unelected foreign officials who never answered to them, this decision is for you. Thank you.
Produced by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Thank you very much. That's RFK Jr. And someone just described him as the most intelligent man. Wonderful man. This is from Charlie. Wonderful man, an amazing man, most intelligent man in history. Sounds like Donald Trump describing himself. And on the issue of the native inhabitants of the Americas, Zigzag is saying the natives should have been more organized and together, but the US was fair game. When Europeans got there, they set up shop. It's not stolen land, it's conquered land. Is there a difference between stolen land and conquered land. You hear this argument quite a lot when it comes to the Holy Land and who has the right to live there, and is it the ancestral home of this tribe or that tribe. And there's no doubt that land was conquered many times by many people. It was conquered by the Romans, it was conquered by the Muslims or various Muslim empires and reconquered. The Crusaders tried to reconquer it back, and in the end Salah ad-Din reconquered it for the Muslims. So if your argument is that the US was conquered and that's okay, then you've got to be okay with what goes on in the Middle East, haven't you? Or maybe it's been conquered again. Or do we gradually evolve and become more moral? Are we not more moral? Or are our morals now different or better than they were in the Roman times, in the medieval times, in the times of the Ottoman Empire? Have we become more moral, or are our morals just different? Do you believe in absolute morality, and is it gradually getting better? Is it gradually getting worse as we get further away from revelation, if that's what you believe in? Or is it just different, and all times are different? What's wrong now might not be wrong in the future. A lot of people do a lot of mental gymnastics to make it okay for Europeans to go to a new land, native land, and drive out the native people or be more organised than them, apparently, but then not like it when people from other parts of the world, many of them with native blood, because a lot of the Latino people, mestizo, Hispanic immigrants coming to the USA have a lot of native blood, a lot of indigenous blood mixed in with the Spanish that arrived. I think more so than when the Europeans arrived. Which Middle Eastern country has nukes? That's a question from 46MD. Answers on a postcard. Charlie Peace is saying, worst morals. We have not got any morals. Morales. Eric Morales. Have we not? I mean, even bad morals are morals, aren't they? Unless you're just completely going, anarchist. Anarchy in the UK. Zigzag saying, was there an established country there beforehand? If so, it's stealing. If it's unsettled and open, then it's for the taking. Well, who's to say that your established country is recognised? Recognised by whom? We used to live as nations and tribes. You might not recognise my tribe, I might not recognise yours. Does that mean it's okay to come and wipe you out? I do think that back in the day, we had empires and people did come and conquer. And if you were conquered, it was probably right to conquer them back in self-defense. And if you're sitting there worried about being conquered, is it self-defense to preemptively go and conquer someone else? But now that we no longer have to live like that, surely it is morally right to treat each other better, treat another as you would wish to be treated. Treat the strangers in your land the way you would hope to be treated while you were in Egypt, while you were once a stranger in Egypt, as it says in the Bible. It wasn't unsettled, it was tribal land. Yeah. The Gulf of Mexico was home to numerous indigenous cultures. This is from Ray, including the Maya, Olmec, and various coastal tribes. The European colonial invaders are not indigenous. That's right. At what point do you become indigenous, though? How many years do you have to live in a place? Because even the Olmecs must have migrated from Central Asia to North America down into South America over tens of thousands of years, perhaps. But we all came from somewhere. Things are different now. It's not the 1400s anymore. That's from Zigzag. Yeah, it's not. But some people want to live with a 1400s mentality. Damned Ghost Story is saying it depends where one gets their morals from. Where do you get your morals from? From your religion? From your culture? I remember debating many times the origin of morals, and for a lot of religious people it comes from religion, and if there were no religion we would have no morals at all, and if you'd never read any revelation or you've never picked up a Bible or a Quran, you just wouldn't know right from wrong. That's what some people say. But there's a concept in Islam that we're all born on the fitrah, the natural inclination, and that you do from that natural inclination have a sense of right or wrong. I believe I'm correct about that. Damned Ghost Story is saying we can get true morals. We need to look to God, to a higher power. Yeah, if you don't have a higher power, if you don't have that, where are your morals coming from? Where are they coming from? I've been watching a lot of these debates by pro-life people against pro-choice, or you could say pro-abortion people. And they show them the picture, the scanned image of the child in the womb. And the pro-choice people are always very quick to say, it's a clump of cells, it's a fetus. And then they go into semantics, because fetus just means baby, I think, in Latin. And they try to use the language to dance around the fact that you're okay with taking a life. That's your morals. That life, the life inside the womb, doesn't take priority over the life or the choice of the mother. And some people who are pro-choice, I'm noticing now, are just coming out and saying, well, no, I am happy to take the life. We've got Tom Williams, who is trying to chat to me. We've got Christian Selness saying, you are FW. I don't know what that means. Damned Ghost Story is saying, kill it. We're not going to say that word, are we? Taking the life of a baby. Is it? Yes, I know, but is it different when it's at that early stage of pregnancy? It's a very, very difficult decision for anyone to have to make, but I'm coming around to that side of the argument. EC1 saying, is it evil to prevent the creation of a baby? Well, the Catholic Church has always taught, or does teach, that the use of artificial contraception is wrong. If you've seen the great film by, what were they called? John Cleese and co. It's called The Meaning of Life, and they say, Monty Python, of course, how could I forget? Every sperm is sacred. You must not prevent the creation of a life if possible. Genetic basis, disposition. This is from Ray. Genes play a role in our predisposition for empathy and emotional reactivity. Okay. genes play a role. So is it genetic? But are we all born with a concept of what is right and what is wrong? If certain things are wrong across all cultures, that would suggest that it is genetic. We are predisposed to believe that thing is wrong. But very few things are wrong across all cultures. I believe incest is one of the strongest examples that you can find. It is considered wrong across every culture. Of course, cousin marriage is accepted. I would say it's been accepted through the majority of history and is accepted in many, many cultures, but in modern times, as we're coming to understand the risks, or there's risk in every pregnancy, the increased risks associated with close marriages like that, it's begun to be considered immoral, morally unacceptable in many cultures. Ray is saying no. Corey White is, I think, disagreeing with abortion. Fair enough. It's an age-old debate. Tristan is saying they've taken video of the exact moment when an egg is fertilized and the light created is amazing. Yeah, that is a mystery, isn't it? At the moment of conception, a bright flash of light. Can you believe that? What is that? How can you not believe in some kind of miracle or greater power? And I remember it was a concept of a film. What was it? I can't remember how many, 2 or 3 grams or something. At the moment of losing your life, the body loses something like 2 or 3 grams, and no one can explain why that is, what weight you've lost. But at the moment you pass away, and if you're a religious person, you're going to say, well, that's the soul leaving the body. Damned Ghost is agreeing. I've seen that. We are born in light because we are beings of light. And Damned is just confirming it's 3 grams. Right, at the moment you pass away, you lose 3 grams. And is that the same for everyone? Whether you weigh 100 kilos or 50 kilos, you lose 3 grams of body weight. We'll have to confirm that. We'll have to look into it. But I have heard that that's the case. And Ray is saying Habsburg jaw was very likely the result of inbreeding. The Habsburg jaw, a facial deformity seen in the Spanish and Austrian kings and queens of the Habsburg dynasty. Yeah, the royal families, it was blue blood, wasn't it? Why did they say they had blue blood? Are they some kind of reptilian people? The people with the blue blood wanted to keep the blood pure, so they had to marry across different dynasties or within the same royal family. You can't marry a royal unless you're a fellow royal, and these families were in Germany. The Windsors are really Saxe-Coburg, aren't they? That's the original name of our British royal family. It was changed during the war because they didn't want a German-sounding family residing in Buckingham Palace or Windsor Castle. So they changed the name because we were at war with Germany. Tristan saying that he's seen that concept as well. We have blue blood, but it grows red when it's the air. Yes, oxygenated blood is the red blood, and when it doesn't have it, it's a darker colour. But I don't think it's blue. I don't think it's actually blue. And clearly suffering from baldness. Yeah, baldness is genetic. You can go bald or grey. I have chosen the latter. Let's get another clip on. We've heard from RFK Jr. Are we turning into a Big Brother world? Let's see. Who's this?
40 minutes from now, we are going to hear. We got another situation here. Let's just
We're
listen in.
we're in Minneapolis. I can't say that. It's probably a Native American name. A lot of the heritage of the Native Americans lives on in the name of places: Idaho, Illinois, and Arkansas. Josh Swift is saying, "You don't look like a Sarah." Sorry, Josh. I am standing in for Sarah Dardasha. We're on two channels here, and we're just about to look and listen to some footage from Minneapolis where there was a fatal shooting, and no doubt the people are up in arms. Dan Ghost saying, "What's your opinion on ICE in America?" Well, let's watch the footage and then we can give our opinion.
Fuck you!
Sorry about the language.
Stop! Look out! Down! Just chill.
Yeah.
I'm fine. I didn't breathe anything. I'm just angry. I'm 7 years old. Fucking angry. Oh, fuck off. I don't think I'll need it, but we'll try it. Wow. What a scene in an American city in 20.
Yeah, in American City in 2020, and dust everywhere, gunshots, absolute mayhem, a city up in arms about the fatal shooting of one of their own. And like the mayor of New York said, one of their own, regardless of what your piece of paper says, if you live in a city, if you live in a town, you should not be pinned to the ground by thugs, ICE thugs, and executed like that. Absolutely horrific. That's my take on ICE, and I hope I've made that clear. Look, in the UK, this is the House of Lords. All right, we've got the House of Commons and the House of Lords. Elected officials go to be members of Parliament, but you've got the Lords. Many of them are hereditary. They are the upper chamber. They pass the laws that get through. And you're going to hear them debating or discussing what's being referred to as the banter law or the banter motion. Are they going to make it illegal to make fun of your colleague down the pub? This is where we're heading with freedom of speech. Already we've got trial by jury in question. Now we've got this.
My Lords, I declare my interest as the Director of the Free Speech Union, and I congratulate the 4 new members on their excellent speeches. I want to draw your Lordship's House attention to just one section of the Employment Rights Act and its impact on the hospitality sector, namely Section 21, which extends the liability of employers for the harassment of their employees to third parties. From October of this year, employers will have a duty to protect their workers from third parties. I should make clear that we're not talking about third-party sexual harassment, which they were already liable for, but third-party non-sexual harassment. And what does that mean for the hospitality sector? It means employers will have to take all reasonable steps, those are the words in the Act, to protect their employees from harassment by customers. That might not sound too onerous until you factor in that harassment includes indirect harassment, which has been defined by the Employment Tribunal as including overheard conversations, remarks, comments, jokes that an employee may find offensive or upsetting in virtue of their protected characteristics. And it's for that reason that the Free Speech Union has been referring to Section 21 as the banter ban. A couple of weeks ago, the government quietly released a 40-page impact assessment about Section 21 that says it's likely to cost the owners of small businesses 23.7 million to familiarise themselves with their new legal obligations, with ongoing costs of £124,000 a year for 10 years. The total cost during that period, it says, could be as high as 59 million. That is, of course, a woeful underestimate. One of the assumptions in the impact assessment is that it will take business owners no more than half an hour to master their new duties under Section 21 of the Act. Half an hour. My lords, that's not the view of the Equality and Human Rights Commission, as set out in a briefing it produced for your lordship's house when we were debating the bill. The EHRC drew attention to the conflict between Clause 21, as it then was, and existing anti-discrimination provisions. It said a third party may themselves be protected from discrimination, while their conduct could simultaneously be considered harassment by an employee, and that makes the legal balancing between rights and obligations difficult for employers to manage in practice. I'll give just one example of the kind of conflict the EHRC has in mind, and which hospitality businesses will now have to navigate. Should they prevent trans women customers from using the ladies' lavatories? On the one hand, a female employee may have a claim for third-party harassment in the tribunal if she finds herself having to share the facilities with a biological male. On the other, a trans woman customer may have a claim for discrimination if the business owner, as a service provider, fails to discharge its duty under Section 29 of the Equality Act, which makes it unlawful for a service provider to discriminate against a person who is using or seeking to use its services. My lords, this is precisely the issue the Women and Equalities Minister has been wrestling with since the EHRC submitted its advice last October about how to revise the Code of Practice on services, public functions and associations, covering, among other things, access to single-sex women's spaces. We were told in this House only this week that the reason there's been such a delay in the issuing of this Code of Practice is because this is such a fiendishly complicated area of law, and it's essential the government gets it right. Yet, if a government minister can't master this area of law in 3 months, with all the legal resources at her disposal, what hope do publicans have to get their heads around it in half an hour? My lords, Section 21 of the Act imposes a new duty on small businesses in the hospitality sector that touches on an incredibly complicated area of law, with real financial risks if they get it wrong. For many publicans, the cost of the legal advice alone, let alone the compliance costs, will be the final straw. And we're talking, remember, about just one section of the Employment Rights Act. Could the noble lord, the minister, at the very least, give retail and hospitality businesses a 12-month reprieve before strangling them with this new, profoundly unwelcome bit of red tape?
Yes, the banter ban. You can't say anything these days. In the comments, Billy was saying, it's called the ladies' room. What's to discuss? And EC is asking, which bathrooms do trans men use? Well, if they're trans men, you work it out. I remember I worked in a nightclub many years ago, and they had those symbols. Instead of saying men or women, male or female, or the image, the sort of the stick man and the stick woman with the dress, they had those is it like the circle with the arrow going into it, which I think is Mars, and the female one must be Venus? Is it the circle with the cross coming out of it? But a lot of people didn't know what they meant. They weren't very cultured like the rest of us. So yes, which toilet to go into is always a problem in the pub, especially if you're drunk. Over on Dardasha, Tom Papa is writing 666 repeatedly. Don't know why he would be saying that. Let's get some more footage from a protest. Why not?
When is it too much? When is it time to overflow?
We are in Minneapolis here.
Where's the line, and when are we done dealing with this? Okay? My question to anyone, including the viewers at home, where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line? Because if it's not here, how many more people have to die? 5. 5 of my neighbors have to die? 10? How many of my neighbors have to die before you're out here in these streets? How many? How many of us have to be slain in the street by our government like it's some kind of crazy alternate universe? This is not how we were raised. This is not the America we want. How many of our neighbors have to be killed?
Not paid protesting. Rural areas do not understand. This is real. We came out here to represent, to support what happened, and they ran at us with their vehicles, just pepper spraying us. I mean, it was gagging. This is not paid protesting. Indiana, do you understand? Wisconsin, rural areas, you don't understand. This is real. Nobody's a paid protester. Was the man that lost his life a paid protester? It's asinine. Where are they getting their news?
This is the United States of America, where people are being shot and killed by the federal government, and then the people who stand up and protest against it are accused of being paid agitators. And you just heard from the gentleman just a moment ago asking how many is enough, how many have to die.
I wonder if we're looking at a George Floyd moment. How unjust does it have to be? People are taken to the street. Is this going to finish Donald Trump? I know he's in his last term, regardless of what he might wish for, but innocent life, I can't see any argument for that ICE officer being in danger of his life and having to take the life of another. Dublin's 5K is in the chat. You're welcome. And Damned Ghost Story, you are very welcome. Don't think that you're hogging anything. And you were mentioning about chromosomes, the sign for male and female chromosome. Possibly. I don't know why they say men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And I know that round circle with the spear coming out of it is because Mars is the god of war, if I'm correct. And there's also the red planet. Denise King is saying no because many love what's happening. Does anyone love what's happening? Does anyone really like to see the sight of men pinning someone down and taking their life? Charlie Peace is saying Trump needs to stay until his 100th birthday. Well, it's going to be a great 100th birthday. He's nearly 80, isn't he? How old is Donald Trump? But we must return to our topic of the evening. Are we headed for 1984 in 2026?
We're here in the UAE, which is really at the forefront of the use of AI in government.
Well, you know, it's Tony Blair here. He wants to use AI.
Things that people often ask from developing countries, but also developed countries, is, well, what's the importance of having that basic digital infrastructure in place? You know, cloud services, data centers, digital identity. How important are these things to put in place so that the rest of the system works effectively?
Well, I think one of the most important things is not to put the digital infrastructure in place and make sure it is secure. There are new technologies right now. This is the last year you will ever log on to an Oracle system with a password. We have biometric logins. The computer recognizes you. It recognizes your voice. It might ask you to put your index finger on the return key. And we know, we're absolutely certain it's you. There's no reason to enter a password. In fact, passwords are too easily stolen. We can make sure that we're using the latest security technology, and it is going to be biometrics assisted by AI to make sure that you are, in fact, Tony Blair, and I'm sure you are.
Yeah, you want to make sure that he is, in fact, Tony Blair, the man whose son is set to profit from the digital ID, the mandatory. What's the difference? A new free of charge, as Keir said, mandatory digital ID, but they've put it on the back burner. It's been suggested every now and then they test the water, and when they see that we're not willing to go for it, it goes away for a little while. Tony Blair tried to do it, tried to introduce digital ID. Then they tried other ways to make it happen, and now Sir Keir Starmer is trying to make it happen, because of all the boat people coming over here. Charles Linton Blair, one of the richest men in the UK, his son, multi-serve CEO. That's right, Tony Blair. He's a Scotsman, and it is Burns night after all. Let's go back to who we started with, Mahmoud.
Well, it's not just the structure of police, is it? It's also the culture of police. For example, police visit people's homes to respond to complaints about tweets, but you'll never see a copper after car theft, and you won't also see them after a burglary. Isn't part of the problem not necessarily the structure or resources, but just the priorities of the police at the moment? What are you going to do about that?
Well, look, I fully hear that case. It's something I've spoken about myself. I think that if the police are seen to be going after perfectly legal tweets, it does cost confidence, and the public does think, well, hang on a minute, exactly as you say, somebody nicked my phone the other day and no one cared, but somebody tweeted maybe about women's rights or something else that's part of the so-called culture war, and then suddenly the police are all over it. That I think even policing leaders have recognised does cost confidence in policing.
So you want to stop them policing people's
I will
behaviours?
Yes, and I will be saying more about that in the coming days. But I've been very clear that perfectly legal tweets and policing the so-called culture war is not what our police are for. They are here to go after criminals, to catch criminals, to bring them to justice, to help prevent crime, and to deter crime by having a visible presence in all of our communities. And all of these reforms taken together are about visible neighbourhood policing and making sure that people in our communities feel safe.
Why do politicians always say, I've been very clear? They're always telling you how clear they've been. Let's go to the World Economic Forum, if we must. If you want to talk about 1984, this is about as close as it gets, isn't it?
I propose putting an end to anonymity on social media. In our countries, no one can walk the streets with a mask on their face or drive a car without a license plate. No one can send packages without showing an ID or buy a hunting weapon without giving their name. And yet, we are allowing people to roam freely on social networks without linking their profiles to a real identity. This paving the way for misinformation, hate speech, and cyber harassment, because it is facilitating the use of bots, and it is allowing people to act without being held accountable for their actions. Such an anomaly cannot continue. In a democracy, citizens have the right to privacy, not to anonymity or impunity, because with those two, social coexistence would be impossible. That is why I believe we must push forward the principle of pseudonymity as the functioning element of social media, and force all these platforms to link every user account to an European digital identity wallet. This way, citizens could use nicknames if they want, but in the case of a crime, public authorities will be able to connect those nicknames to real people and hold them responsible. Because accountability is not an obstacle to freedom of speech. It is an essential complement to it.
Okay. Dan Ghost saying, could you imagine being an officer going to someone's house for a tweet? Absolute cowards. Yeah, just following orders. But it's okay for a woman to walk around with hijab and cover faces. Well, I'll tell you somewhere where it's not allowed to wear the full face covering, the burqa or niqab. It's not allowed during the Hajj. Muslim women who walk around the Kaaba, tawaf, circumambulating the Kaaba, are not allowed to cover their face. Think of that what you will, but it's a fair point that you make. I think people should be allowed to wear what they want, personally. It's part of your identity. El Capitan's saying, IDing someone is not going to affect bots at all. Damned Ghost saying, I didn't know that. Yeah, look, it's an interesting fact, Damned Ghost, and that's an Islamic teaching or Islamic rule. You can't cover the face during the Hajj. And just throwing it out there. Not saying that people should or shouldn't cover their face ever or at all, but that's a fact about the Hajj. Charlie's saying, I do not believe digital banking. Okay. Well, it'd be great if we all had gold and silver, wouldn't it? Yes, the World Economic Forum. All right, folks. Well, we were meant to be finding out whether or not we were headed for 1984. I haven't read the book, but I have listened to the audio book I've started listening to it many times, but it's just a very, very long story. And long story short, surveillance, it's not a good thing. We're losing our independence, our right to anonymity. He said there's a difference there between anonymity, and privacy. At what point does anonymity become privacy? Are you allowed to remain anonymous? I think ever since the pandemic, I hate when people say that, but there, I've said it. People became obsessed with covering their face, and they became kind of secure. It became like a comfort blanket to cover their face. And of course, a lot of pretend wannabe gangsters walk around covering their face, imagining that they would somehow be in terrible trouble with the police if their face ever got shown in public. People that behave like that are usually a bunch of losers. Just putting that out there. America is well on its way. As American, I can attest how shameful this country is right now. Elizabeth is saying only the criminals, maybe. Billy, years ago, no one told anyone who they voted for. Is that right, Billy? Billy, if you don't mind me asking how old you are, I can sort of vaguely remember who you voted for. It was a bit taboo to talk about. It was like never talk about politics or religion. Definitely not at a dinner party, because it could be so divisive. And now, maybe that's not the case. Maybe everyone gets together in the friendship group, and you're only friends with people that agree with you. So you all agree and say, "Oh, we all think that Keir Starmer is a terrible guy," or we all think that. Well, who's the leader of the opposition? Is it Kemi Badenoch or that other guy? We all think that Nigel Farage is a terrible person. Do we only hang around with people that agree with us? Do we only watch channels that reflect our own views? That's why I kind of keep my own cards close to my chest sometimes. I don't want to just give my opinion away in case I only get people watching that agree with me. And I don't want that. I want differing points of view. Billy is 71. Fantastic, Billy. You're a bit older than me, and you remember a time when you wouldn't divulge who you voted for. I mean, why is it even anonymous? You go into the voting booth, and it's sectioned off, and you cast your vote, don't you? So if it is anonymous there, why don't we keep it anonymous? Air Kotzen saying you were already in 1984. Feels like it, or are we just the boiling frog on its way? I think anonymity is a key component to free speech. And you're all on here with, I mean, it would be terrible if we all had to come on here with our full name, wouldn't it? Damned Ghost is saying people need to realise it's not about criminals, it's about the state using everything about you against you and having a social credit score. If you don't agree, you will be cast out of your society. Bank accounts frozen, and definitely El Capitan's Games. Yeah, Hunger Games. Another similar concept. I must also read Brave New World, the precursor to 1984. Lose your job, things like that. Yeah, lose your job for a thought crime. Well, I hate to bring everybody down. I don't want to be negative. If we are headed for 1984, can't we pull ourselves out of it? Can't we do something about it? There are many of us and very few of them. This has been Lessons for Life. Thank you for checking in with me on a Sunday evening. I know we're all up early in the morning for our jobs that we hopefully won't lose by saying the wrong thing. We'll do it all again soon. We were here and we are gone. Laters. And thank you for watching over here on Sarah Dardasha. No, I'm not Sarah Dardasha. I'm just standing in, and Michael D is saying, "Are you Carl Froch?" No, I didn't box George Groves in front of 80,000 people. Yeah, look, thanks for watching. Pass it round. More of these to come.
In 1984, George Orwell paints a world suffocated by surveillance, where truth is rewritten at the